This is stupid. I suck. Hey friends, it's Just the Gems. I'm Brandon. I've been thinking a lot about how we choose what game to play next over this past week. I think a lot of it comes from my review for Reynatus that came out just last week. Link to that's in the description if you want to check it out. I, as you might already be aware, had a pretty different opinion on it than a lot of other JRPG YouTubers had. And it was really interesting to me. Like, I don't have any negative feelings at all about the situation. Nobody was mean to me about it. Like, even the comments were overall pretty cool and chill, even the ones that didn't agree with me. So, you know, I think it's great that we have different opinions. I have no problem there. But it just really made me think about how we as players decide what game we're going to play next. If we can rely on reviews to help us make that decision, or if there's other ways that we can go about doing it. So I figured maybe we would sit down and have a little talk about it. What do you think? Cool, let's do it. But before we begin, would you mind clicking the like button to help this out in the algorithm? I would really appreciate it. And also, if you aren't subscribed, would you consider subscribing? We're just so close to 10,000 subscribers, which is a number that does not fully compute in my mind as it is, but it would be really cool to get there. So I would really appreciate it if you wouldn't mind subscribing. Thank you so much. Also, real quick note, if you like JRPGs and podcasts about JRPGs, check out our new podcast, the JRPG Pursuit. The link is in the description below. Go over there, subscribe. You can also listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere you get podcasts, but we're on YouTube as well. So check that out. Let us know what you think. And yeah, anyway, on with it. Let's go. So how do we decide what game to play next? The way I'm looking at it, and I'm sure there's more, but the way I'm looking at it right now, I feel like there's three main ways that I'm able to come up with. First is reviews, right? Like, that seems like the most obvious one. A new game's coming out, you wait for the reviews, you see what the consensus is. Maybe you have a reviewer or two that you tend to feel an affinity for, and so you wait to see what they have to say. They like it, you're on board. If they don't like it, you say, forget it, I'm gonna skip it. Another way would be something like trailers, pre-release information from the developer, from the publisher, showcasing the game, right? Like the hot new trailer for the new game comes out and you're blown away by how awesome it looks, and you're thinking, okay, this is right up my alley. I'm not gonna pay attention to the reviews because they're just gonna muddy the waters in my brain. I think this looks amazing, I'm gonna go get it. Trailer sold me. Or the third way that, at least in my mind, you might decide which game to play next is the pedigree of the developers. So I know that I love this director. He makes amazing games. I know that this character designer, she does the most amazing character portraits. I know the characters are going to be great. The musician is just fantastic. The best composer in the world. It's Go Shina or Yasunori Mitsuda or somebody. You're like, of course I got to get this game because the music's going to be awesome. Like, you know, maybe that's just me, but you know, using the pedigree of the developer maybe to help you determine whether or not, you know, based on their track record, is it going to be a good game? And chances are, if they made good games before, they're going to continue to make good games. So maybe you go that route. So with all that in mind, those methods, and I'm sure there's more, and I would love at the end for you to share down in the comments with me your thoughts on maybe other ways that I'm not even thinking of right now. But using those three kind of methodologies as like the basis for what we're talking about, I want to discuss first why it's so hard to pick the next game that we want to play. One thing that I've heard from a lot of people, and that I feel as well deeply in my old bones, is that we have a limited amount of time, right? On this earth, and also just in our day-to-day lives. We have responsibilities as adults. If you're an adult, if you're a kid, you still have responsibilities. That's just different. So we have things that we need to do. We don't have infinite time to play games. If we did, how amazing would that be? But, you know, I think with the sweet comes the sour. So we need to have the sour. Otherwise, if everything was just sweet, I think we'd get sick of it. Do you know, does that make any sense? I don't know. My point is that the other stuff we have to do makes playing games better. Whatever, let's move on. Let's just move on. So because we have limited time, we only want to play the best of the best. Like, why would we waste our time on anything that isn't the best top of the line AAA experience when our time is so limited? We want to have the best time possible, maximize our fun, maximize our enjoyment. Let's play the best games. So like I said, I understand that deeply. The issue that I have with that, well, there's a couple issues, I think. One is kind of at the heart of this whole question, which is how do we determine what the best experience is going to be? Like, is it the game that is reviewed the best by the most people? Is it because it's a AAA, high budget experience? Are we confident that that means it's the best? I mean, do we play it and feel like it's the best because everyone's telling us the best, but are we having the best time with it? Are we convincing ourselves that we're having a better time with it than we actually are, just because that's what the crowd is saying? I don't know. I mean, that's a very real possibility. The other issue that I have with focusing on just the quote-unquote best games, the top of the line AAA experiences, is I feel like that is detrimental to our media diet. What do I mean by that? Like, if a AAA experience is that big old slab of delicious beef, sorry to vegetarians and vegans, this is not going to work for you. Substitute beef with something that you really love. But this big old slab of beef, and it's delicious, right? And you love it. Every bite of it, it just melts in your mouth. It's so amazing. And I'm right there with you. I love it. I love it too. If that's all that we eat, I think after a while, our gaming health might start to suffer. If you don't eat your vegetables, you don't eat your fruit, you don't eat your grains, you're missing out on the vital nutrients your body needs to be complete, right? And I think with video games, I mean, this is a silly analogy, but we're just gonna head down, power through it. With video games, if you don't take from a variety of different types of games, your understanding of, say, the genre or the community at large is going to be less, right? Like, you can speak more authoritatively on the subject of, say, JRPGs if you've played a variety of JRPGs from across the spectrum, from indie to AAA, right? If I only play the AAA experiences, then I am missing vital information that makes it impossible for me to have these sorts of conversations. Now, maybe you don't care about having high-minded conversations on the internet about video games. That's fine. That's fine. But I love doing that stuff. And I feel like I benefit from experiencing a wide variety of games that are not just those AAA quote-unquote best games ever. Another reason it can be hard to choose is I feel like the weird political discourse can muddy the waters quite a bit. A game might look totally fine, but there's something in it that somebody's like, oh, that's woke, or what, whatever, like just goofy, like everybody gets upset about stuff. It's like, I don't, like, does that really bother you? Is that something that really bothers you? Or is it because politics has become a team sport and your team is against this particular thing right now that you have to, like, take a stand? Like, I don't know. I feel like it'd be better for you in the long run if you could just put those kind of preconceived notions aside and not worry about that, and just, if a game looks cool and you want to play it, just play the game, enjoy it. Like, Dragon Quest has type A and type B instead of male and female, which was not a change added by the localizers, by the way. That's been in the games for quite some time now in Japan. That's a whole other thing. I need to get into it. But type A and type B, if that upsets you, I would say take a step back and think, does it need to? Like, is it okay to just be like, I feel differently about this, but this game looks fun, I'm gonna play this game anyway. I don't know, that would be my advice, because, like, there's so many good games that you don't want to miss out on because your team in this sport of politics has decided that this particular thing is the thing that they don't like right now. Like, that's going to change over time too, right? Like, the political spectrum is always shifting, it's always moving. So at some point, this thing that you're upset about is not even going to be a thing you care about anymore. So why rob yourself of that experience just because, right? So anyway, political discourse can make everything muddy and messy and no fun. So another reason that it can be really hard, I think, to decide what to play is that as human beings, with the internet in particular, we have a hard time, how do I put this, meekly expressing our humble opinion about something, right? In general, we tend to shout it from the rooftops. And when enough people start shouting from the rooftops, you get a cacophony of noise. And how do you make a decision about what to play if everybody's shouting at you, don't play this game, or you need to play this game? And, you know, and I don't exclude myself from this. I made a freaking YouTube channel. I'm on the internet talking about video games like I'm part of the problem, obviously. But you know what I'm saying, right? Like when everybody is talking in both of your ears with different opinions and telling you you're stupid if you like this or you're stupid if you don't, like it can be difficult to make a decision for yourself because everybody's pushing you and pulling you in one way or another. So it's a challenge to decide what game to play. So anyway, going back to the 3 ways that I've decided are the 3 main ways that you can make a decision about what game to play: reviews, your trailers, and your pedigree. Let's just talk about each one of those and go into a little more detail so that we can think about it, and then we'll go from there. So first up, with reviews. The first thing you need to think about when you're looking at a review, whether in print or on YouTube or whatever, is how is the reviewer presenting the game to you? If the reviewer is saying, hey, this game is awesome, you're gonna love it, you should go get it right now, I would suggest that you be suspect. If the reviewer is saying, this game sucks, it's terrible, don't waste your time on this, I would be suspect. The reason is because nobody can tell you what you're going to like, right? Like, you may have an affinity with a particular reviewer, you may agree with their opinions the vast majority or all the time, but that doesn't mean that's going to be the case forever. Everybody's life experiences are so different that it's impossible for me reviewing a game to tell you, listening to the review, that you're gonna love this game or you're gonna hate this game. Like, all I can do is tell you about the game, tell you about my experience with it, how I feel about it, and then recommend you try it for yourself, right? So any reviewer that is giving you that sort of definitive statement is not really doing you any favors, because they can't, and it's not, you know, it's not their fault, they're not psychic, like they can't tell what you're gonna like or what you're not gonna like. So that's something I feel like you need to keep in mind, because it's very common among reviewers to present games that way. It's kind of like an instinct, right? How else can reviews go wrong? I think like comparing apples and oranges is an easy thing to have happen in a review. And what I mean by that is, and I kind of talked about this in my Reynatus review, where I compared like Square Enix as being like the Disney, okay? And they're putting out these Marvel movies that are, you know, have big stars and huge budgets and lots of special effects and bring in all this money, and it's astonishing and everybody loves it. And a company like Furyu that made Reynatus as being like an off-Broadway production of a dramatic play, right? Like, you experience the Marvel movie and the play in basically the same way. You sit down and you watch it. So you're having your experience happens in the same way. But it doesn't really make sense to compare those two things. You wouldn't say, well, this play was good, but it didn't have Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man in it, and I love the quips that he makes. He makes some of the funniest quips, and he wasn't in this making quips, so I didn't like it. Like, that's silly, but you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make sense to compare these two things, because they're doing very, very different things. Their goals are completely different from each other. So comparing an indie game or a AA game to some AAA experience with all the budget in the world is not helpful. It feels like it could be helpful because, as I said, you experience games the same way. You sit down in front of your television with a controller and you play the game. So you're experiencing both of those things, both of these games, the same way. So it seems like it should make sense to compare them, but it just doesn't always. They're not going for the same thing, right? They're just not always going to be reaching for the same goal. Another thing, like I alluded to earlier, is aligning yourself with one or maybe two different reviewers is going to cause problems eventually. Even if like, say, you found that my tastes in games seem to align perfectly with yours, even if every game on my shelves was identical to every game on your shelves, we had all the same games, we've played all the same games, we had the same overall opinion about all those games, that doesn't mean we feel exactly the same about all those games. Any individual game, even if you and I both give it a 10 out of 10, we're going to have varying opinions on the different aspects of each of those games, right? Because your life experience is different than my life experience. What I bring to the table in my thoughts about this particular game is different than what you bring to the table in your thoughts about this game. So aligning yourself directly with a reviewer or two reviewers and making your decisions based on that, it's not always going to be a win for you. And it's also, which kind of leads me into my final point on this, I think will potentially cause you to miss out on some things that you would really have liked and that you'll never get to experience. Now, I can say with a reasonable level of confidence that there are dozens and dozens of games out there right now, games that have been released that are available to buy, that I would love, that I would be crazy about, some of which might be on my top 10 favorite lists of all time, and I will never play them because I don't know they exist. I've never heard of them. I never read a review about them. I never saw a trailer, but and that's sad, right? Like in a way you think about that, it's like, man, what could have been, right? It's a bummer to think that you're gonna miss out on all these games, but it's just reality. There's so many games out there, and if you don't ever step away from, I guess, the comfort zone of the reviews that you consume, you run the risk of never experiencing any of those games. Like branching outside of the realm of experiences that is curated for you within the community gives you that potential to be able to have those experiences you otherwise just would never have. So anyway, that's reviews and how they go wrong or how they can go wrong. I want to talk a little bit about kind of my philosophy on reviews, since I am technically a reviewer. So I wanted to give you a sense for how I approach games before we move on to the other topics here. So when I do a review for a game, what I'm trying to convey is the ways in which a game resonated with me, right? The emotional experiences that I had throughout my time with the game. And those can be anything from how the story affected me, how the characters interested me, how the gameplay compelled me. There's a lot of different experiences that I might have had throughout the course of the game. And I want to explain to you as best I can using my limited words to turn my feelings into something audible for you to consume. And that's going to be imperfect, but at the end of the day, all I can do is try to convey the emotional experience I had to you. Now, if I had a good overall experience with that game, I will almost certainly encourage you to try it. Now, look at a game like Harvestella, which is one of my favorite games of all time. I don't think, and I'll need to go back and check to make sure I'm not being a hypocrite, but I don't think that I ever said you will love Harvestella. Go buy Harvestella right now, you'll love it. If I did, then I was stupid and I've learned a lot, but I don't think I've ever said that. What I tend to say in these situations is, I love this game. I think you should give it a try. I think you should try it because I have enough confidence in what I experienced to say that if you are anywhere within the Venn diagram of humanity that I'm a part of, if you're near enough, you are likely to have a similarly good experience with it. But I'm not going to guarantee that. I can't guarantee that for you because I don't know you and your unique life and your unique experiences. All I can do is recommend that you try it. Play a demo. Most games have demos. Wait for the game to go on sale and get it for cheap. Minimize your risk. Like, there are ways to go about it to experience a game without necessarily dropping $60 or $70 on it on day one. So that's how I tend to approach games that I'm recommending. And actually, kind of in the same way, when I don't have an overall good experience with a game, when overall I'm left wanting playing a game, I will still tell you about my experience, and I will make a point to highlight the things that, while they may not have worked for me, might work for other people. And I might even still encourage you to try it, right? Because again, I don't know your experience. I don't know what's going to appeal to you. Even to my closest friends, I don't necessarily know that they're going to love something. I might have a better idea than a stranger on the internet, but like, it's hard to nail that for somebody, right? So the best I can do is present the experience that I had and then recommend to you that you should try it. And I mean, if I really hate a game, maybe I won't recommend it. And maybe I should still, I don't know. But that doesn't happen very often. Like, I feel like most games are made in good faith, and they're not trying to waste my time, and they're not trying to hurt me. So I tend to be a little bit more chill about games in general, I think, than some people. But anyway, that doesn't matter. Point is, like, at the end of the day, whether it's a good review from me or a bad review from me, I want you to know about the experience I had with it so that you can make a decision for yourself whether or not it's one you want to check out. So the next method for choosing a game is trailers, right? These amazing trailers that companies put out. They make games look fantastic, right? And that's cool. That's a fun experience. I love watching a good trailer and just getting goosebumps and being like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for this freaking game. It's going to be so cool. The thing we have to keep in mind with trailers is that a trailer is an extremely curated look at a game from people that are extremely invested in you being excited to buy it, right? You know this. We all know this on at least a subconscious level, maybe even a conscious level. We know that they're trying to sell us the game. They're not presenting an unbiased view of the work, right? They want it to look cool, and they're going to pick the best shots, the best scenes, the best gameplay to make it compelling. But I will say that, you know, getting a good feeling from a trailer might be enough of a reason to try a game out, right? Like, if I see a trailer for a game and it looks really appealing to me, and maybe it wasn't on my radar before, but the trailer makes it look really good, it's on my radar now. I may want to check it out. Does that mean it's a day one purchase? For me, probably not, because I don't rely on trailers as my primary method of deciding whether a game is going to be for me. Maybe it is for you, and I'd love to hear in the comments kind of your thought process on that, and how often it works out for you versus how often you feel like you get bit by it, right? Like, you know, because I don't know, like, for some people it may be a perfectly good way of doing it. For me, I feel like it's too heavily weighted by the developer, by the publisher, to be truly useful. But like I said, it can be a good indicator that maybe I want to have this game on my radar. Maybe I do want to check it out, even if I'm not going to day one purchase it. Now, the third way that we might choose the next game we're going to play is actually really similar to how we choose what other media to consume, the pedigree of the developer, right? So, you know, if we have favorite authors or favorite directors or favorite musicians or bands, you know, we will most likely buy the next work from that author or from that musician, right? Like, we will go see that movie from the director that we like, because the track record of those people suggests to us that we like the sort of stuff that they do, and so we are very likely going to enjoy this new thing that they've made. Now, that's not obviously always going to be 100% true, right? Like, not everybody knocks it out of the park every time. You know, Stephen King wrote The Stand, and he also wrote Cell. So, you know, like, you get what I'm saying, right? Like, not everything is going to be the bestseller, awesome, amazing experience, but it can be a great guidepost. And honestly, in my mind, it's my preferred method for choosing what game to play next, because it has paid off for me in numerous ways over the years. Most notably with, I mentioned Harvestella earlier, one of my favorite games of all time is Harvestella. When I saw the trailer for Harvestella, going back to trailers, it did not work for me. It did nothing for me. I was like, it looks pretty or whatever, but like, I don't want a Rune Factory clone. I'm just not interested in farming sims. I don't care. It's not for me, right? Wasn't into it. I found out Go Shiina was doing the music. Go Shiina, if you don't know Go Shiina, is just an amazing composer. Some of the music he's written is just like, it's just mind melting to me how, I don't want to turn this into a Go Shiina review, but like, he makes really, really good music. So the fact that Go Shiina was doing the music for this game was enough for me to go, okay, Go Shiina. Maybe I'll check it out at least, right? Maybe I'll give it a shot because I trust him. I know that at the very least, I'm going to have a great soundtrack to listen to. I trust that. So I picked up the game, and then it became one of my favorite games of all time. So you see what I'm saying? It's like, if you have, you know, developers whose track records you trust, then jumping on board the project that they're working on next, I feel like it's more likely to work out than, especially looking at trailers, right? Even more so than reviews, right? Because you already know that the style of this particular developer is something that is going to appeal to you. So there's not a question about that anymore. Like, not to say that developers can't change styles, they change just like we all change, but you know what I mean. It's not a perfect system, but I feel like it's more likely to be beneficial to you than the others. At the end of the day though, there's no wrong way to choose which game to play, right? No matter what anybody says, there is not an incorrect way to go about this. If you are playing games and having fun, you're winning. And that's what really matters the most. My encouragement to you though is to consider broadening your horizons a little bit at least, right? If you only play AAA games, take a look at some indies or AA sorts of games, right? These games that don't have the budget, that are helmed by smaller teams, that are creative and really focused on delivering a particular type of experience they want you to have. Give them a try, right? Just give them a shot. You don't know, maybe like I experienced with Harvestella, you might find like one of your favorite games of all time because you were willing to kind of step out on a limb and try something that might be outside of your comfort zone. That's just a recommendation though. If you are going to only play AAA games and you're happy and you're not stepping off of that, that's totally fine. I want you to be happy, enjoy the games you play, and that's all there is to it. So find reviewers that you vibe with to help give you advice. Find developers whose work you enjoy. Like if you particularly enjoy a game, look into the director, the character designer, the battle director, look at the people who made it. Go on Wikipedia, find the other games that they made, like start to understand the discography of these creators, because that's going to give you a roadmap to find the next games that you might want to play, games that you can be reasonably confident that you'll enjoy on at least some level, right? It may not be your favorite game of all time. Like, don't set that as your goal, that every game you play next has to be your next new favorite game. Like, find a game that you might enjoy, just go for it, give it a try. Hopefully you like it. And if you don't, put it aside, move on to the next one. Try games out, like try them out before you buy them. Using the criteria that we've been talking about, like if you see some games that you're interested in, download the demo. A lot of games have demos. It's pretty easy to get your hands on. Or like I said, buy them on sale they go on sale for $10 digital. I'm a physical collector, so it seems like blasphemy for me to recommend you buy a game digitally. But like, if you find a really good digital sale on a game that you're kind of on the fence about, go for it. Like, get that game on sale and play it. Minimize the risk, right? Like, and then if you hate the game and you're just not having a good time, put it aside. You're out $10, so what? That's fine. You'll bounce back. You'll bounce back. Just play games, have fun. Try not to be overly critical of other people's choices. Like, I think that the more we can just try to get along with each other and respect each other's differing tastes and opinions on things, the better. Cool the temperature of the discourse whenever you can. I just, have fun. Be a part of the community, and let me know down in the comments if any of these points resonated with you, or if you have any other methods that you use that we didn't talk about for choosing the next game that you play. A lot of times I'm playing a game because like I have to review it or something, so the choice isn't as much of a factor, but there's plenty of times where I've just got leisure time and I'm like, I want to play a game. What do I play? I look at my shelves and I'm like paralyzed because I've got so many. Like, tell me what you do. Like, let me know. Let's talk about it down in the comments. I'd love to have a conversation down there. So that's basically it. I mean, once again, if you wouldn't mind subscribing, if you like the stuff I make here, and if you'd like the video to help it out in the algorithm, that would be fantastic. Check out the JRPG Pursuit podcast if you wouldn't mind. And yeah, that's all I've got to say. Oh, this was a Gems episode, by the way. Forgot to mention that. Okay, bye.